So now I'm here, I'm working on restraint and seclusion legislation, I'm working on a dispute resolution process, and I couldn't be happier. So all I want to say is advocate, advocate. Don't be scared if the school tells you something. There are organizations out there that will help you. Michigan Protection and Advocacy helped me. So, I mean, it's out there. Do it. Thank you.
John Austin is our state board president. I am so honored and touched to have him here today. He's been on the board since 2000, and he's just embodies everything that is important about public education for every single child in Michigan. So please welcome him.
Thank you, Marcy. And thank you for pulling this all together, and thank all of you out there for being here, being present, for being advocates for yourself and your kids, and for being advocates for those who can't advocate for themselves, to help send a message to the folks in this town about what we need to continue to do to make education work for all of our people, including our special needs students. I am John Austin, President of the State Board of Education. Our job on the board and our job in Michigan, frankly, is to enhance the learning prospects of all of our people, to equip them all with the skills and abilities to realize their full potential, to open doors to new worlds and opportunities, and to support our young people and our adults to provide for themselves and their families, to engage as citizens, to be treated with dignity and respect. And this is true whatever their income or social status or zip code they live in, whatever their race, religion, or country of origin, gender identity, or sexual orientation, or whatever special learning needs they may have. And it also is important that we send a clear message as a state, that we value all our people, that we are the most welcoming and supportive state with the most supportive schools and communities. We want people to choose to live here and stay here and come here because we have the greatest and most supportive learning environments that help all our people to their full flowering, including those with special needs. That is why the work of the Lieutenant Governor, Brian Calley, and the Commission on Reforms and Improvements to how we treat and support our special education students are so important. I applaud the Lieutenant Governor and my colleague Eileen Weiser, who's here on the State Board, who served on that commission, and Michelle Fector, who could not be here, and all of you and all of those who contributed to that roadmap, because it is a roadmap for what we must do to do right by all of our people. And I'd like to give a special shout out to former State Board colleague Liz Bow, who's here, and you'll hear from her in a minute. Liz brought us the importance of having a universal education system that supports everybody in our great diversity. And that's what we passed in 2003, and it's been our guide. And even though Liz isn't on the board, she stays our guide. She tells us what we're not doing, what we need to move faster and quicker. And so she's been a particular spur to make our education system work for everybody in their unique differences. So we're here today. All right, let's give it up for Liz. I mean, we are here because we have to insist that the momentum, we have to keep up. And we have to make the necessary investments and the necessary reforms in our special education system that were laid out by the Lieutenant Governor's Commission to ensure that every student gets the education they deserve.
Representative, I have watched him grow into what I believe he is the advocate of advocates for children and adults with disabilities in Michigan. He is our poster for children and adults with disabilities in Michigan. He led the charge to increase services for children with autism. He was the only voice needed at the Joint Committee for Administrative Rules hearing, December 2014, to stop the Michigan Department of Education's what I believe to be regressive, dangerous package of rule revisions. He is the chair of the Special Education Task Force, and I am so proud to serve on this with him every step of the way. He says it's 1,000 steps. It might be more than 1,000. And he's done all of this as the youngest lieutenant governor in our nation. So, I mean, I look forward to where I will see him next, but I will always expect to work with him on issues of children and adults with disabilities, mental health issues, and just creating opportunities for all.
Thank you so much, and it does my heart well to see you here and to be a part of this movement. I want you to think about, you remember that first time that you held your baby before any kind of labels or diagnosis, before any sort of lanes or silos, before definitions and ceilings and obstacles were in the way, but it was just you and this baby that had all the potential and the opportunity in the future to make it whatever you wanted it to be, whatever that child wanted to grow into, and whatever dreams and hopes that they had, that they would have the type of support in order to make it a reality. But then, as we move from a system that separated out people, that predetermines outcomes, that so desperately seems to want to predetermine what a person can and cannot do. As parents, we find ourselves in that position where we are the chief advocate in a place that we thought, that we expected would be on our side. But as we approach this change, and it is fundamental change, I want you to think about the work and the movement that you're a part of as being something much bigger than creating opportunity for a student or for a group of students. That this is really the next great step or next great part of the civil rights movement in America.
That's right. That's right.
This is going beyond awareness of needs and potential. It's going beyond acceptance that we will have students no longer segregated to second-class citizenship or into places where they are hidden away. It's more than just acceptance of the students into our society, and in schools that means into general education classrooms.
Yes.
But it's about true inclusion. And what is true inclusion? This word gets thrown around and it means a lot of different things to a lot of people. But maybe we could break it down and make it much more simple than that. True inclusion is where a person has every opportunity to explore their potential. That they have access to the world in the same way that everybody else does. That they are not limited, defined, or constrained according to a label or a diagnosis, but instead, the world sees that same potential that you imagined when you held that baby the very first time.
Amen.
We would no longer put the end before the beginning. We would no longer set a system up that presumes that a child is meant for this station in life or that station in life. And we'd stop pretending that something called person-centered planning and living a self-determined life means anything if we didn't first give that person access to explore what the world had to offer in the first place. Because you can only chase dreams if you live the kind of life where you can imagine a dream in the first place.
Yes.
And that's really what this work is about. It's not about trying to take a person and provide charitable options around them. It's about recognizing the intrinsic value and purpose and potential in a person and supporting them so that they can achieve that potential. It's about including them in determining what is the best course of life that they would like to pursue. That we would no longer accept the notion that a person with Down syndrome isn't supposed to be married and have their own family. That we wouldn't say that here are the types of professions that a person with a developmental disability has the permission to pursue. That we would no longer encourage them to look at their future inside of a small box, but instead with an expanse as big as the sky. That we would look at their potential and their opportunity as something that is exactly the same as every other child. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what true inclusion is, and we cannot accept anything less. So we've got some concrete steps that we can take right now to make a difference. Even just yesterday, how heartbreaking it was to watch the news and learn about a child who was put into a seclusion room for 3.5 hours, not even allowed to use the bathroom. This package of legislation, the first step, the first implementation goal of the Special Education Task Force, it's more than just elimination of the use of sensory deprivation rooms and restraints. It's about treating students with dignity and giving them the opportunity to look forward to going to school. That school would be that safe and exciting place. It would be the place that they would want to be. And we know that the evidence shows that there are best practices today that not only make the situations where these barbaric and inhumane tactics are used are completely irrelevant, but they open up a whole new world of social and academic opportunities for the students. Because we've got a lot of schools around that have years ago started down the road of positive behavior interventions and supports. We have schools that have gone down the road of implementing a multi-tiered systems of support where they really put the student at the center of everything. And the goal is to make sure that we have a truly individualized education plan where the needs of the student determine the services around the student, not just the label, but the needs of the student determine the services around that student. And the difference is profound. The difference that it makes is profound. Because not only is the student themselves free from the deplorable situation where sensory deprivation rooms and restraints are used on them, but that same time then can be used to explore social opportunities in academics. And we're the staff that today, and if you were to ask teachers today, what's a major challenge? What is the major challenge? In most cases, you're going to find in their top set of needs, their top set of concerns, the top set of challenges that they face, behavior is always near the top. And what if we had better behavior practices? What if we had positive behavior support? And all of that time spent on dealing with problematic behaviors was instead spent on academics. And that's really the point of all this, is to recognize that we are talking about kids being in a position where they can learn. Now, it's no wonder that a student goes through, in Michigan, up to age 26 and can leave school and not have learned much. And it's a travesty, because every single human being can learn. Every person has the ability to learn socially and academically. And what if we had a system that made that assumption in the first place? What if we had a system that didn't allow for anything different? Now, I want to acknowledge that as we have moved through this process with the package of bills on restraint and seclusion, that there are several school groups that were right there at the table in the beginning. And even though this was a scary change for some people to imagine, that we would leave these practices in the past, the way that they've always done it in the past, and do something totally different in the future. And it was a scary process for some. but one by one, the advocacy, your advocacy, people that are up here on this, at the top of these steps with me, in this process that we went through to learn together, to move forward in a way that sees and recognizes and acts upon the potential, more and more came on board. And now we have, I'm so proud that we have a near consensus, whether it's the School Boards Association or the teachers union or the administrators and the special education administrators and the principals group, that all of those groups now have come on board and joined with us to say that we need to end the practice of restraint and seclusion in our schools.
Yes, we do.
And with your help, we'll move it from now where it stands at on the floor of the House of Representatives all the way through to the governor's desk, and it will change, profoundly change, the future of so many kids across our state. We can't do it without you, and so I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sticking up and advocating for your child, and thank you for looking at it broader and making a difference for the next generation of Michigan.